just to start it out, like you see here together, Sarrasota and Manatee County, we have a big network in the state. The state of Florida emergency management works very well together, and in this area, all of our law enforcement, all our fire agencies, they all work with us, and our job is to coordinate that activity in a community during an emergency event. So last year for 2021, the hurricane forecast was what you see up there. We were expecting 16 to 20. We ended up getting 21 named storms. They were expecting 7 to 10, 3 to 5 major. So we were very lucky again last year. We did have Elsa in the 4th of July timeframe, but we've been very lucky over the years. It only takes one storm though, right? So we're not concerned about what the numbers are, if they say we're going to have an above average season or not. It only takes one storm. Next slide, please. So we had 21. We went through all of the names in the list. This year, they're predicting another above average season. Storms entering the Gulf, and they're actually talking about the high possibility of an East Coast strike. So our friends from Georgia all the way up into the eastern seaboard need to really be paying attention this year. This is the cone that we utilize whenever a storm is coming. And if Sarasota and Manatee County are in that 5-day cone, that's when we begin to take action and start making our plan to do what we need to do for the county. Now, one of the things that we have to do is evacuate, and we evacuate for two reasons. One is storm surge. Because we live so close to the water in the Gulf of Mexico, Manatee River, there are a lot of areas that can be inundated with salt water, with storm surge, areas that can flood, so we got to get people out of those areas.
And on top of that, if they took the data from Hurricane Katrina, Louisiana, so to give you kind of benchmark, if we would have had the surge that Katrina had, we would have had at least knee-deep water on First Street from the beach. So that gives you some understanding of what it could be. We'll get into it a little bit later. I think probably most of you know where Manatee City is, right, east of here, and then Arcadia. Well, during Hurricane Michael in the Panhandle in 2018, they had over 100 miles an hour winds as far inland as Arcadia. So it's not that you're a few miles away.
Yeah, hurricanes are not just coastal storms, and we'll talk about the wind. And the reason we have higher surge is because of that continental shelf. If any of you are deep sea fishermen, you know you got to go way out to get into that deep water on our side. But on the other side, on the East Coast, you can go very short. So they have high waves but low surge. We have low waves and high surge. And the damage can be done to our bridges, and we have a lot of bridges that go all over the place. And if those bridges are not passable, then we can't get to you. You can't leave the island. So we need to get people off the barrier islands and into safe areas. And then we utilize aircraft or boats or barges to get emergency vehicles over there after the storm. This is Hurricane Michael, Mexico Beach. You can see up in the upper left is the Gulf of Mexico. And that's very far inland into the city. A lot of damage, a lot of devastation. You can see the storm surge took buildings right off of their foundation. The wind does the rest of the damage. Debris can pile up like that. That's one of the things that really is a hazard. When a storm surge comes in, it'll pile up all that debris on 41 or whatever the road is that the water reaches the farthest. It'll just deposit everything that it destroyed. And that's hazardous materials, refrigerators, cars, and unfortunately sometimes dead animals and people.
And in Manatee County, we have, Sarasota does too, Hillsborough does too, but within Manatee County, we have 7 what's called first in teams. And those are comprised of law enforcement, fire, EMS, public works with front end loaders. They are strategically placed 7 different locations throughout the county. As soon as the storm goes by, they hit the streets with the front end loader, and we'll just try to open up. And what they are is for the major thoroughfares, 41, 301 Manatee Avenue, so major thoroughfares to the hospitals and to like the airport and so forth. So that's what can happen, but we have in place, Sarasota has in place, other counties, we have those teams in place, because going back to Hurricane Michael, our own EMS units, Sarasota had units up there, literally had to have local farmers with chainsaws and tractors to open up the roads where they could get EMS and fire service in to help the people.
So every county that's on the coast has a storm surge map or an evacuation map. This is Manatee County's map. And we all have tools called Know Your Level, so that you know what evacuation level you're in. Now, you all live in this beautiful mobile home park, so you are automatically in level A, because all mobile homes have to evacuate for the hurricane because of the wind threat. But the map is in that book. But Steve, you want to talk them? I'll help you talk him through how to find your level.
Yes.
If you have a business or friends or relatives, and you'll know what level you're here in as well.
So it'll come in the slides. A very easy website to find. I was very proud of my staff this year. Came up with a really good idea. It's manatee.org. So mymanatee.org.
Next slide, please.
/weather. So pretty easy to remember. And you bring up this website, and it's got several click-ons, and right now we're talking about evacuation shelters. If you clicked on that, then you're brought up to a screen that says enter your address. And you just enter 123 Main Street. It will tell you shelters that are open, it will tell you sandbag location are open, it will tell you what level of evacuation you live in. But as Ed just said, because you live in a mobile home park, you're automatically level A, because they're just not safe in heavy winds. I'm sure you've probably had a few windstorms come through that you may have went, oh, I may not want to be here. And I think in 2020 or 2021, I think I remember either your park or the neighboring park had a few mobile homes that were damaged. But this way, if you have family and friends, it can tell you what evacuation level they live in. Unfortunately, you're automatically an A, but if you use that website, again, mymanatee.org/weather, it's a really neat website that has shelter locations, level locations, sandbag locations, and you can actually drop down to the bottom of the page and and I don't know how long you've lived here, but you can hit on like the Island or Palmetto or Parrish or Lakewood Ranch. Because if you haven't seen it already, you know it can rain on this side of 53rd Avenue and be bone dry on that side. So if you're watching the news and they go, oh yeah, it's raining here in Manatee County, well, where? You can get more specific locations, and also there's some information we'll talk about the hurricane guide and so forth.
Is the website in the material?
Not the entire website because it's brand new. So it's our website /weather. We tried to simplify it as best as we could.
The other reason we evacuate is mobile homes and other structures because of the wind. RV parks as well. RVs do not do very well in this type of weather. So people that are on boats or RVs, we ask them to evacuate as well. You can see the wind is very destructive. There's tornadoes in the outer bands of the storm as well. You'll get these watches and warnings. These were actually actual watches and warnings for Elsa last year on the 4th of July when we had that storm come through. So 48 hours before that hurricane is going to come, you're going to get that hurricane watch. 36 hours before, you'll get a hurricane warning. So if they say Manatee County is in a hurricane warning, that means in 36 hours, you're going to get conditions. You may not get the center of the storm, but you need to be prepared. And that's a good indicator. You might want to put up your hurricane shutters or evacuate, begin your planning.
And as Ed said earlier, he's from Sarasota, I'm from Manatee County. That county line to us is invisible because the storms don't care. And we have to be in constant communication too when storms are approaching, because they're coming in and off the Gulf and go either direction. So we work very closely together. We have countless phone calls. When are you going to start to evacuate? Which shelters are you going to open? And there's times that our residents may go to his shelters, his residents may come to our shelter, depending on where they're located or where their family's located, because Longboat Key, Lakewood Ranch, the airport's all in both counties, so we have to do that. So for the residents of both counties, it's important that we all work together as the first slide, fire, law enforcement, public works, and the list goes on.
Next slide. Computer froze.
Y'all remember that hearing test when you were kids? Yeah. So tornadoes are also in the outer bands of hurricanes. So you have to be very careful. Even if a hurricane is way out in the Gulf of Mexico like that one, it still can produce a lot of tornado activity on our coast. So that's why you have to be prepared even if you're not under a hurricane watch or warning. The warning process, this is very important. You need to be able to get that warning. That's the key. Most of these storms in Florida, we don't have the big EF4, EF3 tornadoes that you see in Oklahoma or Kansas or all those Midwest states. We have little water spouts that drop down and maybe an EF0, EF1. They can do damage, but they're not these catastrophic hurricane or tornadoes that we can see. But when they do see them quickly, they will issue these warnings. If you have a regular cell phone, you should get it similar to what an Amber Alert, you know how your phone goes off? Now, they've become so sophisticated that they can tell you if you are in that cone. And if you're within that area, off that cell phone tower that's pinging off your phone, you will get the warning. Somebody a few streets down may not get it because they're outside of it. So if you get that on your phone, that tells you that a tornado has been spotted. It's a very short message. What you need to do is find a safe location until that storm is over.
It was what, February, the Charlotte County, they had over 30 mobile homes, 300 mobile homes majorly damaged. I think it was February, within minutes of being alerted. And a year and a half ago, it's now called IMG Country Club, but anyway, it's IMG Country Club now. We did have an F1 tornado hit a year and a half ago, did about $1.5 million damage to homes in that neighborhood. That's just up the street from here.
So that's another major reason you should be at a safe location, not here when we evacuate for a hurricane, okay? Roof damages from Hurricane Charlie, major. And you can tell the ones that are missing the roof completely probably didn't have hurricane shutters. So we asked people to put up hurricane shutters on their homes. I always like to show an example of that. This is my home during Hurricane Irma. We put up all of the shutters, have the reinforced garage door, and that way you're more likely to keep your roof and keep your home intact. If you must evacuate, think about these things right here. Go tens of miles, not hundreds of miles, okay? You can go to one of our evacuation centers, but that's the last resort. It's best to go to friends or family or leave the area if you can, but you got to think about, you know, your travel distance. You got to think about gasoline. You make sure you have enough fuel to make it. If you're going to leave the area, I-75, you know how that's going to be. It'll be a parking lot. But you could stay on 70 and go out east. There's 17, 27, all the way to 95. You can take any of those north or south. So really plan out if you're planning to leave the area. There's a lot of homes being built, too, in east of I-75 under the new Florida Building Code. With either impact windows or shutters, a lot of people in that area will not need to go to shelter. They can stay there. So I've been telling people, make friends with somebody who lives in Lakewood Ranch.
Make good friends of the new development out east, up in Parish, because they'll be your best friend, because a shelter, as Ed said, is a last resort. It's a rowboat, not a cruise ship, and so it's better to go there. And you know, on 75 on an ordinary day, what the traffic is, we're not just worried about evacuations from here. You got Sarrasota County, Charlotte County, Lee County, all of those are coming this way. So know that. I had a friend that procrastinated during Hurricane Irma. Atlanta is roughly 88 hours away, depending on how you drive, over 17 to get there, and almost ran out of gas several times. So have a plan, know where you're going, like Ed said in the slide, tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. Or if you are, as soon as you start seeing a storm out there, go back, some Georgia or the Carolinas. But if you wait till the last minute, no.
And if you're going to stay in a hotel, make sure that's a safe hotel. It was built recently, not one from the 70s where the roof's going to come off while you're in it. That happened to people during Hurricane Charlie. So what do you need to do? You need to put together a disaster kit, have a plan, and stay informed. Watch the local news channels to know what's happening.
As we talk about a kit, and think about this, I just talked to somebody the other day, and it was kind of like a deer in the headlights look. Right now, and I'll say Publix, right now, if you went grocery shopping at Publix, do you get 100% of the items you went for? Probably not, right? The shelves are bare. Whether it's Publix, Walmart, Winn-Dixie, there's not a lot of goods, so prepare now for your kits. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of you are probably from up north, right? What did you have in your, you got to help me with this, what's that thing you go in underneath, you call it?
Storm shelter.
Cellar.
Cellar, there you go. See, I don't know.
Cellar, basement.
Yeah, there you go. But what did you have there for your blizzards? Canned goods, right? Food, water, first aid kits. You need all of those things except two things. Winter coat and a snow shovel. But you still need your prescriptions, your food, your water, a weather radio. The list can go on. The guides have them listed. The website have you listed. And I know there's a slide coming up. Stock up now and at least a week's worth wherever you go.
It's a good idea to pack your own bag too. Everybody in the family has their own little go kit with their clothes, change of clothes, shoes, prescriptions, some water, some snacks. That way everybody can grab their bag and go, and then you have maybe some containers that have food and water that everybody's going to use.
Here's a very valuable lesson we saw in Hurricane Michael when I went up there. We're telling you to take 7 days worth of supplies, right? So people pack, I've got one too, my little 7 days worth of medicines, put it in there Monday through Friday, AM, PM. Well, when they came back, they had no home, their doctor's office was destroyed, and their pharmacies was destroyed. I know when I go get a routine prescription to be refilled, what a hassle it is. Take your prescription bottle with you, because there's plans and processes, Department of Health and everything actually can do mobile pharmacies. And there's some restrictions that are let up during the storm. So if you do have, and we'll just say blood pressure, because probably a lot of us are on that. Your blood pressure medicine that is from Walgreens, Dr. So-and-so, is so-and-so milligrams, they'll fill it. Do you think if I walked into Walgreens of Tallahassee right now and said, oh yeah, I want a XYZ medicine? No. So a little bit that we learned, yes, having your 7 days, but take your prescription bottles with you, because your pharmacy and your doctor's office may not be there to get it refilled.
And when the governor declares a state of emergency and does the executive order, there's this paragraph in there to pharmacies to allow you to get additional extra over your normal dose amount that you can have, so that you'll have that extra after the storm. This is very important. You want to take care of your important documents. Either have them in a safety deposit box or a fireproof, waterproof container in your home. Wills, birth certificates, marriage licenses, all those types of things. You want to have some cash, because ATM cards and credit cards probably won't work after the storm.
What's a really good idea, can you all see this thumb drive? Y'all know what these are, come in various shapes. What we like to recommend is, who's been married 40 or more years? Okay, I bet you have a wedding picture, right? Somewhere. Would you rather have that wedding picture on here or no wedding picture, right?
I'd rather have it on the cloud.
Yeah, yeah, right. Wills, insurance papers, the whole gamut of important papers. Not just one. Carry one in your pocket, one in your safety deposit box. But because if you're running for your life, you're not going to be grabbing all those things. But those important wedding pictures, grandchildren pictures, but wills, insurance, et cetera, is a great idea. And now almost every printer you buy from Office Depot or Staples is a scanner. So a good way of keeping it, and you always have it.
Next slide, please. There you go. All right, so we've kind of covered that. The first week, you need to prepare for 1 week worth of supplies. Whatever you don't have with you, you're not going to be able to get later. And if you do go to an evacuation center, or a shelter, you do want to take that stuff with you. They will have food in there eventually, but you want to have your cooler, your initial snacks and food to get you through. You want to bring your sleeping gear. A lot of people during Irma went to a shelter thinking there would be a cot and a blanket and a pillow and a chocolate mint on the pillow. The Red Cross doesn't run our shelters like that. After the storm, they do set those up like that so people that lost their home have a place. These, before the storm or during the storm, are risk shelters. It's just a safe building. We clear the furniture out and give you some space. So you have to decide, should I stay or should I go? And now here, you've got to go. If you live in this community and we call for an evacuation of any level, you know you need to evacuate because of the wind. So anybody low-lying areas, close to the water, river areas, and mobile homes. And we'll pass this slide. This is about if you live in a site-built home after 2002 and you have hurricane shutters, you most likely can just stay home as long as you're not in an evacuation area that's going to flood. Something that a lot of people can do to their homes, I've done this to my home, is do a wind mitigation inspection to make sure that it has all the protection you need. Now, if you determine that you can't stay home, you want to try to stay with a friend or family member, go stay with that new friend you made in Lakewood Ranch. Go to a hotel or go to one of our evacuation centers. Plan your route. We talked about that. You can take 70 or 72 or 64 and head out to the east and make your way north. Because going north...
You can't go west. Only about 10 miles from here is the Gulf of Mexico, so you're not going west. You're sure not going south. And unless you want to be with about 2 or 3 million other people going north, head east. I mean, that's going to be probably your best bet. Your 70, your 64, 62. And
you want to look ahead for gasoline. Don't wait till you're on E, obviously. You want to use your smartphone, use your cell phone, try to find gas stations off the beaten path where you can go top off when you hit half a tank. If you're traveling,
have you ever used Gas Buddy? That's a neat app to use.
Yep, there's a lot of good apps out there that can help you. So to find the shelters, though, the list is the same thing, mymanatee.org/weather, and then you click on evacuation shelters, right?
Yep, so the important thing here is, and I'll go over a couple times, so you can see where the evacuation centers are. But we do not open them all at one time. We have 25 general purpose shelters, but we do not open them at all at one time. So you could live across the street, I don't think you do, but you could live across the street from a shelter, but we may not open it. So we open them up in phases. So usually they're about 4 in phases, one north, one east, one south, one, and then we know we're going to need more, we'll open up more. So here's the thing. All shelters are schools, but not all schools are shelters. So all shelters are schools, so they're well constructed, but not all schools are shelters because they got to be built. Some are really old, some are near the water, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the important thing of why we say go to the website, or later on we'll talk about calling 311, not 911, but 311, and saying what shelter's closest to me or what shelter still has room, because we constantly monitor it, because if we're not gonna open a shelter for 3 people. We'll open them for thousands, so we open up in a sequence. So that's a good way of finding out what shelters are open. And that, again, is having a plan. If you are going to evacuate early, because, let's see, easy way to explain this. A piece of plywood's, what, 4 by 8? So I was educated in Palmetto, so my math's not real good. So 4 by 8 is how many square feet? Help me out. 32. What's the slide say you get?
20.
That's less than a sheet of plywood per person fully stocked. So that tell you something? That's why it's a safe location. A safe location. That's what it is. It's not that cruise ship. It's not, anything else. It's when we had 35,000 people evacuated during Hurricane Irma. And probably 34,000 didn't need to because they lived in high ground in a newer home. And we probably had a lot that should have, they didn't. But 20 square feet, think about it, that's why I use plywood, is not that much space.
Next slide, please. There we go. This is hard to see, but it's inside the guide, all 25. And if you see that little symbol with the dog and the cat, those are pet friendly. You have 3, I think, that are pet. So you can bring your pets. You need to have the crate and the vaccination papers and the leash and the bowl of water, or the bowl, water, food, all that stuff to take care of your own pet, but it will be allowed in those
So
locations.
you have to have a plan for your pet too. Whether it's a dog, domestic animals, not steaks, not goats, not chickens. And I say that for a reason. Those tried to be entered in Hurricane Irma. So dogs, cats, birds. So you have to have that. What other, we live in paradise, right?
Yes.
A lot of us have no, I can't say. Most of you probably have family up north, right? So during the summer, when it's hurricane season, June through November, but what happens in June, July, and August? No school. Do your grandkids, nieces, and nephews come visit you, right? So you need to plan a plan if those wee little ones, as I call them, are with you during a hurricane. What are you going to have with them? And I'm going to say this, I love my little granddaughter to death, but if we lost electricity and she didn't have her little tablet, ooh, right? I mean, we all grew up on board games, and cards, and checkers, right? So have a plan. Coloring books, their snacks. Because if they're here visit, right? We live in paradise. They come down for the summer. What are you going to do with them if a storm comes? That's important for them.
We lost our slides.
Oh,
Oh, there we go. Well, they just wanted a close-up of you.
Broke the camera.
Next slide, please. So bridges, this is a misconception. A lot of people think that when we close the bridges, they're up and you can't go anywhere, right? What we do is we lock them down. When our storm is coming, the Coast Guard will announce a notice to mariners to let them know they only have so much time to get their big boats and sailboats out of the marinas to wherever they're going to take them. And so then we lock the bridges down in the down position, remove all the arms, and you can still cross them, but we're going to put law enforcement on the mainland side to minimize the amount of people that go onto the island. But we're trying to evacuate. They will let you on if you have to go there to, save somebody or get your mom or your pet or something off the island. But they're going to minimize that. And then when the winds get up to 40 to 50, they're gone. And we hope nobody else is on the road at that time. Next slide. A lot of people don't know this either. When we get to 50, 55 mile per hour sustained winds, if you dial 911, nobody's coming. And that's hard for us to say, but that's the truth. Because if we send out a rescue or a fire or police truck out to your home during the middle of that type of storm, they might be impaled by a tree or crash or drown in a flood, and then they're not good to you or anybody else. We need to retain them safely until after the winds die down. So if you call 911, they're going to guide you through your emergency. They'll tell you how to stop bleeding. They've delivered babies over the phone during hurricanes. But just remember that. You need to be in a safe location. Re-entry. This is very important for folks mainly that live on the barrier islands, but if this park was devastated and we didn't want to let looters and stuff come in, just the residents only and the staff, then we would set up, perimeter with National Guard or police officers, and only people that had proof that they lived there would be able to come in. So for re-entry for the islands is a process as well. Manatee has a process for the islands, and Sarasota has a separate one, but we honor each other's process, because if they lose a bridge and people have to come to Sarasota to get there, and vice versa.
So even let's take your park here. If it was majorly damaged,
Next slide.
we're gonna, as much as we can, try to protect your property. And there'll be somebody, or hopefully have somebody at your entry screening people coming in. So you need to have proof of identification. So it could be your out-of-state driver's license, right? A lot of you maintain your out-of-state driver's license. So if you do that, have an electric bill or a water bill with your name to your address here, so the officer can say, oh yeah, John Smith from Michigan, John Smith at 123 52nd something, right? So even though you have an out-of-state driver's license, you're going to have that power bill, that water bill, or something to prove that you live here.
Okay. And then Manatee County has these hang tags for the islands. We have a wristband. Everybody has to go through a checkpoint, show proof that they have a reason to come on. We give them a wristband. Manatee waves the people through with the tags, and if they have to come to our area, we'll do the same. And they'll have wristbands to give for us. And these are the credentials Steve mentioned. It can be an employee ID, pay stub, voter ID card, something with your address on it here. Okay? Special needs. You want to talk about special needs?
Yeah, sure. So in Manatee County, and I'll let Ed talk about it, sir. In Manatee County, we have one special needs shelter, and we have a backup special needs shelter. Those are for electric dependent, oxygen dependent, and Alzheimer. Just because you have medical problems does not automatically admit you in the special need. Oxygen dependent, electric dependent, or Alzheimer. Then we have that one school set up with doctors and nurses and paramedics. That's the only shelter too that will have cots for the people. But if the caregiver cannot tend to the patient there, then they need to go to a medical facility. It's not a treatment center, it's just another shelter strictly for, it's the only, listen to me, it's the only shelter in Manatee County that has a generator. For that reason, it's the only shelter in Manatee County that has oxygen concentrators and oxygen supply and nurses and doctors on staff. And you can go on our website, on that website, if you or a family member meets those criteria, we want you to register now. Register now that you need to go to a special needs shelter, because that way we can know whether we need 500 beds or we need 5,000 beds, and what kind of medical trained people we might need. So register now, because then when the storm's coming, you'll be alerted of, tropical storm Ed's on the way, or are you going to evacuate? Do you need the use of the shelter? We also, if you're dependent on transportation to any shelter, we have transportation dependent. So I know a lot of you may not drive on your own, so if you needed a ride to a general purpose shelter, register now. We'll send a transit bus to you as long as it's safe. But special needs people will go to special needs shelter. Transportation dependent will go to a general shelter. And if you're medical and transportation, will take you to the medical shelter. So please sign up now, because I think statewide, so I'll just ask you, if you were having a party at your house and you're expecting 10 people, and all of a sudden 50 people show up, do you have enough chairs? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough toilets? No. So if we're expecting 500 people at the special needs shelter and 2,000 show up, what kind of care can we give them or you? And statewide, I think it was about 4 times the people that should have been, or 4 times as many people showed up at special needs than we had on notice. So very important, register now for not only special needs, but transportation dependent. And it's through that same website. There's a form that you get filled out, and you want, I think yours is pretty much
Yeah, ours is pretty much the same. Next slide, and then that's the, if you click on that link to their website, you put in special needs, you'll get that. You can register online, or you can go here and print out the forms for transportation only and then mail them in. Next slide. And that's what it looks like inside the medical needs or special needs shelter. They do have the medical type cots, which are a little higher off the ground. You get about 60 square feet for yourself, your equipment, your caregiver. And then you need to bring your oxygen concentrator and then your travel oxygen to get you to and from on the bus. While you're there, you'll use your concentrator. If power fails, that's what the generator's for, to back that up. And then if that fails, we have liquid oxygen or regular oxygen tanks. So we have to have 3 times the backup in case that happens. And it has happened in the past. Next slide. Generators, very important. If you have one, if you're going to use one, let's say the storm is over, you had minor damage on your home, you came back to the park, but there's no power, you want to run a generator, make sure you follow those rules. Make sure you don't put it near open windows or in a garage of any kind, that you're not trying to refuel it while it's running, because it's very dangerous, it will catch fire.
And a lot of people say, I'm going to buy a generator. Think about this. And I have one. A little bit of Honda generators, you can buy. Great. A little bit of noise. Well, that may charge your cell phone and a lamp and a fan. So you need to know what, and that's why they're from $200 to $20,000, because it's how much power you need. And the big thing, as Ed said, in general, more people are injured and killed after the storm than during the storm, because they'll put generators in their garage, on their back porch. They'll put barbecue grills in the garage, back porch. But know what you need to run that generator. Don't backfeed them. And of course, you got to follow the rules of your association. But the very bottom one is know how to refuel too. Because I've seen so many people let that thing run and ignite and get burned from that too. So just having a generator is like walking into a restaurant and say, I want something to eat.
And have a fire extinguisher nearby too.
What is it that you want?
Have that fire extinguisher nearby too, a proper fire extinguisher, not one that shoots water, but an ABC chemical type fire extinguisher. Next slide. Follow the local media. I know Weather Channel, Fox, CNN, they're going to be talking about the hurricane, but they're not going to tell you what's happening here. So follow the local news channels on local radio stations, and you'll see the press conferences from the Manatee EOC and my EOC, and we'll give you information on what's happening and what you need to know. They also have Facebook, so if you have a Facebook page, you can follow Manatee County Department of Public Safety on Facebook. They also have a Twitter page, I believe.
And also, if you go into your app store, we have one that's called 311, and that actually will take you to the site to give you where the shelters are and all. But a lot of information. Isn't it better to be informed than not? So social media, regular media, but listen to the professionals, not just. Did you know you can't believe everything on the internet? I'm sure you did. Make sure. So just because you read it, don't mean it. So make sure it's coming from valid sources, from the government, from Channel 40 or 13.8, etc. Don't just it's
You want to talk about Alert Manatee? What was that?
We'll have a slide and it's on here, but it's Manatee Government, Manatee County Public Safety, and several the others. So Alert Manatee, Manatee Ready. Manatee Ready is if on your phone, if you text the word Manatee Ready to 888-777, that registers you for short text messages, very short, like evacuation or evacuate levels A, etc., etc. Alert Manatee is mymanatee.org/Alert Manatee. You're signing up for additional pushes of information directly from us. Sarasota has the same thing, but it's a good way of you getting information from us without having to depend on the news stations and so forth.
Okay, next slide.
So this is what I talked about earlier. It's brand new. We're just premiering it. Actually, in probably about a month when we do our media day, it'll hit the media, so y'all are first to hear it. This is Severe Weather Information Center. So it's mymanatee.org. My staff did an educational project on it. Like I said, it gives you forecasts for specific areas, power outages, sandbag locations, shelters. And once you get to that website, you just click on the various links or the icon. A really super proactive information to you as citizens where you don't have to wonder what's going on, what's open, what's not open.
Next slide. That's it. Any questions that anybody might have?
How soon before a storm do you activate that where we can start getting information?
It depends, at least 48, 72. It depends on how strong, because here's the thing, how fast is that storm coming? Because I myself would go crazy if we started telling you 2 weeks out, 3 times a day, it's off the coast of Africa. So one is, how near is it? Is it in that cone of uncertainty? How fast is it moving also? So I think you have some battle rhythm brought in that starts at what,
120 hours out.
120 hours out. But again, you got to think, is it moving at 30 miles an hour or is it moving at 2 miles an hour? But they have a benchmark, like you said, 120 hours out, start providing that information. And then we look at that cone of uncertainty of where that's going. It's somewhere in that cone. They haven't pinpointed it. That's an exactness to it.
Did you give shelter locations? I would handle the whole thing. Where you go? If
Yep.
something happens?
They're in the brochure, and also mymanatee.org/weather.
And the news media will be broadcasting it too. They'll tell you these shelters are open.
So before y'all start going out, we have, I think those will move to the back. These handouts, there's some hurricane prep bags in the back and some light snacks too. But yes, sir, back here. Yes, sir.
Another route north, and I did this when Irma came through. If you go over and go up I-89, the Suncoast Parkway, that takes you up to US 92, US 92 to 19, and you'll go north right into Tallahassee. We went that way and there was no traffic.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that route.
No, they don't.
Just gotta watch it at sunset because the deer love it.
All right, in the back. Yes, sir.
Curious, do they ever change I-75 to reversible lanes so they're all going north?
No, that
That was a thought several years ago, but you know what? There's help that needs to come to us. So what they're now doing is making it where they're going to open up the emergency lanes. In
The
certain
shoulder.
areas. The shoulders.
Yeah.
Shoulders.
And our 75, our section of it has never been one way. That was Alligator Alley 75 across from Miami to Naples. I-4 could go, Interstate 10 could go, and then the turnpikes. But they stopped doing that because, like Steve said, there's help coming that needs to get here. The power truck stage, a lot of stuff's coming. People are coming down to get their parents or their kids, and if we don't let them go south, then they can't get here. So it's better just to flow out of here, get everybody moving.
Okay. Any other questions? Either we did a really good job or we put you to sleep. So, thank you very much.
Please see Ellen and Robert from Dedicated Senior Medical Center. They have some swag back there for you. They have some treats. So take everything. So she doesn't have to take it with her. All right. Take it all. Take it all.
I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you for coming.